If you live on planet Earth, you probably already heard of massive advances of the Free Syrian Army in and around Aleppo, while SAA forces are withdrawing. It makes me wonder how and if T-72 tanks will be used in a potential counteroffensive by the SAA. What also wonders me is how the FSA is going to use their captured tanks to potentially advance even further. If this interests you as well, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll make a video around that topic in the near future once we have more data. The story of the Syrian Army T-72 Mahmia tank, also known as the T-72 Adra, unfolds against the backdrop of the Syrian Civil War, which began in 2011 and saw intense urban combat, necessitating rapid and innovative military adaptations. As conflict ravaged in Syria's urban centers, the Syrian Arab Army found itself relying heavily on old armored vehicles, including the T-72 tanks imported during the late 20th century. These tanks were increasingly vulnerable to modern threats like RPGs and ATGMs. The Mahmia was created out of necessity for the SAA to continue carrying out its operations, and this tank is what we're going to talk about today. Syria's association with the T-72 began in the late 1970s when the country received its first batch of T-72s from the Soviet Union. This initial delivery, comprising 150 T-72s, marked the introduction of a tank that would serve as the backbone of Syrian armed forces for decades. In 1982, a second, more advanced batch of 300 T-72As followed, making Syria one of the rare export recipients of this variant. These T-72As were later upgraded to T-72AV standards with Contact 1 explosive reactive armor and became mainstays of elite units like the Republican Guard and the 4th Armored Division. The T-72 fleet expanded further in the early 1990s with the delivery of 252 T-72 M1s from Czechoslovakia. While effective in conventional combat, these tanks faced challenges in urban warfare during the Syrian Civil War, prompting the development of the Mahmia upgrade to counter new threats. By the early 2010s, during the Syrian Civil War, the Free Syrian Army as well as other factions had devastated Syria's T-72 fleet. Urban combat environments like Jobar and Aleppo exposed the tanks to frequent ambushes by soldiers of the Free Syrian Army armed with RPGs and modern ATGMs. The heavy casualties inflicted on T-72s highlighted the need for enhanced protection, leading to the emergence of the T-72 Mahmia. The term Mahmia, meaning shielded in Arabic, reflects the central purpose of the upgrade, to shield the tank and its crew from urban threats. Initial efforts to bolster T-72 survivability were makeshift and crude. Field modifications included adding spent shell cases or mesh baskets filled with bricks to replace missing ERA. These stopgap measures, often implemented by frontline units, offered minimal additional protection but demonstrated the potential of improvised armor. Despite their limitations, these early experiments laid the groundwork for more systematic upgrades. The 4th Armored Division, one of Syria's most elite units, spearheaded the development of more robust modifications. Recognizing the effectiveness of spaced armor against RPGs, the division began experimenting with configurations involving metal plates, sandbags, and even rudimentary cage armor. These trials culminated in the first standardized Mahmia upgrade. The first generation of T-72 Mahmia tanks emerged in 2014, primarily from workshops in the town of Adra, north of Damascus. These vehicles featured cage armor surrounding the turret and hull, with additional chains and steel bolts added below the turret and along the sides. The cage armor created standoff distance to pre-detonate RPGs, while the chains aimed to disrupt incoming projectiles, similar to the systems used on Israeli Merkava tanks. The Mahmia tanks were also given distinctive camouflage patterns, typically two-tone schemes, to differentiate them from unmodified T-72s. The first 3 Mahmia tanks saw combat in Jobar, where they demonstrated mixed results. One tank survived, another was abandoned after catching fire, and a third was destroyed by a catastrophic internal explosion. The T-72 Mahmia proved moderately effective in urban combat, offering improved protection against RPGs and small arms fire. However, the design had clear limitations. The cage armor provided no overhead protection, leaving the tanks vulnerable to attacks from elevated positions, which was bad in urban combat. Moreover, the thin chains and cage armor often failed against modern ATGMs, which could penetrate the tank's original armor even after defeating the additional layers. For example, during an engagement in Qabun in 2017, a Mahmia tank was struck by an RPG-29. While the additional armor prevented penetration, the resulting shockwave injured the commander. Similarly, encounters with IEDs revealed vulnerabilities, as seen when an IED killed a Mahmia driver in Qabun. By 2016, lessons from battlefield experiences led to the development of a second generation of the T-72 Mahmia. These tanks featured thicker girders to support heavier applique armor, larger and more robust bumpers with spaced or composite armor, and heightened cage armor around the turret for improved overhead protection. The modifications aimed to enhance survivability against both RPGs and later ATGMs while maintaining the tank's urban combat role. Despite these improvements, challenges remained. The increased weight of the armor reduced mobility, and the enhanced cage design sometimes hindered crew evacuation in emergencies. The T-72 Mahmia program inspired further innovations, including the rumored T-72 Grenadizer. This concept, drawing inspiration from Iraq's T-55 Enigma, aimed to incorporate modular composite armor to provide superior protection against modern threats. Another noteworthy development is the T-72 AV Shafra, aka Sharp Knife, which experimented with advanced materials like tungsten and fiberglass to create more effective spaced armor. The T-72 Mahmia was deployed in urban hotspots like eastern Ghouta, Aleppo, and Daraa. These tanks supported infantry assaults and defended key positions. While not invulnerable, the Mahmia upgrades significantly improved the survivability of Syria's aging T-72s in one of the most challenging combat environments of the 21st century. Anyways, that was all I had to say for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you think I said anything that is not right, or you think I should have added any additional information to this video, please let me know in the comments and share your knowledge. Besides that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.